What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted had been deceiving you all along? That's exactly what happened to Mark Harrison, a successful businessman who lost his sight after a tragic car accident. But when his vision began to return, he uncovered secrets that would turn his world upside down. What he discovered about his wife Laura would leave you speechless. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get more gripping stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. You won't want to miss this one. Mark Harrison had everything he ever wanted: wealth, success, and a beautiful wife by his side. But that all changed after the car accident that left him blind. Overnight, Mark's world was plunged into darkness. Gone were the days when he could walk into a boardroom with confidence or gaze into his wife's eyes with love. Now, he depended entirely on Laura for everything. At first, Laura was the perfect caregiver. She was patient, loving, and attentive, helping Mark adjust to his new reality. She helped him learn to navigate their home, prepared his meals, and even read to him at night when he couldn't sleep. Mark was grateful, believing that their marriage would emerge stronger after this trial. But as the months went by, Laura's devotion began to wane. Mark tried to ignore the little signs: the late-night outings, the hushed phone conversations, the way she'd suddenly stop talking whenever he entered the room. He convinced himself that she was just under stress. After all, taking care of a blind husband was no easy task. But deep down, a gnawing feeling of unease began to take root. And then, one morning, something miraculous happened. Mark woke up, expecting to be enveloped in the usual darkness, but as he rubbed his eyes, he noticed something strange. Faint shapes, blurry and undefined, but unmistakably there. He blinked in disbelief as his vision slowly started to return. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, allowing him to see vague outlines of the furniture around him. Overcome with joy, he almost called out to Laura to share the news. But just as he was about to shout for her, he froze. He could hear her voice downstairs, speaking in a hushed, urgent tone. "No, I'll meet you later," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just give me a little more time. It'll all be taken care of soon." Mark's heart skipped a beat. There was something off about her tone, something secretive, something that sent chills down his spine. What could she be hiding? Mark decided right then and there that he would keep his returning vision a secret. He needed time to figure out what was going on, and if Laura knew he could see again, she would become more careful. For now, he would pretend to remain blind, using his regained sight to his advantage. As the days passed, Mark began to notice changes in their home that he had never picked up on before. The once familiar scent of Laura's perfume was replaced by a new, stronger fragrance he didn't recognize. New pieces of expensive decor had appeared around the house, items he knew they hadn't bought together. He glanced across the hall. Mark began paying closer attention to everything Laura did. He noticed her texting more often, always hiding her phone the moment he entered the room. The late nights became more frequent, with Laura casually dismissing his questions, with vague excuses about catching up with friends or work meetings that ran late. Mark's mind was racing with questions, but he didn't want to confront her just yet. He needed more proof. He needed to be sure. One evening, as Mark pretended to be asleep, he overheard Laura on the phone again. "I'm doing everything I can," she said in a frustrated whisper. "Just be patient. He doesn't suspect anything." The words sent a shiver down Mark's spine. Was she talking about him? The next day, Mark decided to take matters into his own hands. While Laura was at work, he began to explore the house more carefully. He ran his hands along the surfaces of furniture, feeling for anything new or out of place. In the coat closet, he found a receipt tucked into the pocket of one of Laura's jackets. It was for an expensive dinner at a high-end restaurant, one they hadn't visited together in years. That same night, as they sat in the living room, Mark casually brought up the restaurant. "I was just thinking about that place we used to go to. What was it called?" he asked. Laura's reaction was almost imperceptible, a quick, nervous flicker in her eyes. "Oh, I went there with a colleague," she said with a forced smile. "Just catching up." But Mark knew better. The lie was evident, and it only fueled his suspicions. Over the next few weeks, Mark began to shadow Laura's every move without her realizing it. He'd memorized the creaks in their floors, the sounds of doors opening and closing, and the rhythm of her footsteps. One day, while pretending to organize his bookshelves, he caught her watching him with a strange expression, a mix of amusement and curiosity. The paranoia was eating him alive. Then, one afternoon while she was out, Mark finally took the risk of going through her things. He searched her desk, her drawers, and her closet. At first, he found nothing unusual. But then, hidden in the back of her study drawer, he discovered a small, locked box. Mark's hands trembled as he picked the lock. Inside, he found documents that made his blood run cold. They were transfer papers for his assets, his business, his accounts, his house and residential. He'd spent the night in his dead girl's cabin, clearing out her things. He'd spent the night in the deed to their home. Laura had been systematically moving everything from him. Mark was stunned. Laura, the woman he had trusted with his life, had been planning this for months, using his blindness to her advantage. But he wasn't ready to confront her yet. He needed to see just how far she was willing to go. For the next few days, Mark played his role perfectly. He acted as if he were still blind, carefully hiding the fact that he had discovered her betrayal. Lara continued to act sweet and caring, oblivious to the fact that her lies had been exposed. But beneath his calm exterior, Mark was seething with anger and heartbreak. The two men almost fell off the mattress as her heart leapt so far out of her chest. But just then, Lara walked around the room, searching for something to show Jane. Then came the day that would change everything. Laura left the house dressed to the nines, claiming she was meeting an old friend. Mark decided to follow her, keeping a safe distance. He watched as she got into a sleek black car driven by a man he had never seen before. They drove to an upscale cafe, the same one she had lied about before. Mark's heart pounded as he watched from a distance. He saw Laura laughing with the man touching his arm, leaning in close. It was all too intimate, too familiar. But it wasn't just an affair. This was about more than just betrayal. Mark was determined to find out the full extent of her plan. While with determination came action, Mark stepped forward and reached a warm hand out to Laura's younger sister. Bish rushed forward, catching the little girl up in her claws, making sure not to fall away from her embrace. That night, as Laura returned home, Mark was waiting for her in the living room. On the coffee table lay the stack of legal documents he had found, along with divorce papers he had quickly drawn up. Laura froze, her face going pale as she saw what he had laid out in front of her. "Mark, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Mark stood slowly, his face cold and unreadable. "I know everything, Laura," he said quietly, each word cutting like a knife. "I know about the man you've been meeting, the secret accounts, and your plan to take everything from me." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she tried to backpedal. "It's not what you think," she stammered. "I was just—" But Mark cut her off. "Save it. I've seen everything. Laura, yes, that's right. I can see again." Laura's eyes widened in shock, her face draining of color. She had no idea that Mark's sight had returned. She had been caught completely off guard. Mark's voice was cold, steady, but beneath it was a heartbreak he couldn't hide. "You took advantage of me when I was at my weakest. You thought I was blind, literally and figuratively. But now it's over." Laura's knees buckled as she realized the full weight of what she had lost. Everything she had schemed for, everything she had planned was crumbling before her eyes. Mark handed her the divorce papers, his eyes never leaving hers. "Sign these and you'll get nothing. Refuse and I'll make sure you end up with even less." He turned his back on her, walking away without looking back, leaving Laura sobbing on the floor. Mark had lost so much, but in the end, he had found something far more valuable: clarity. He had been blind to the person Laura truly was, but now, with his vision restored, he was free to reclaim his life. Laura's betrayal was a wound that would take time to heal, but Mark knew one thing for certain: he would never again be fooled by someone who wore a mask of love only to hide a heart full of deceit. If you are captivated by Mark's story, please hit the like button. Subscribe to our channel and share this video with friends. What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted had been deceiving you all along? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.